Well, we are so thrilled to be joined by Russell from YK Communications and Fernando, the customer success manager here at Calix, working on the Bark product specifically. Thrilled to be joining or have you guys join us for this conversation and to dig in a little bit more around Bark and how you brought this into your communities. Russell, I've known you for quite a while. I know that supporting your communities and doing the right thing for everybody who's living there is really important to you. Could you tell us just a little bit of background on why you started to launch some of these things into market, why it's so important for you and how you're supporting the communities that you serve?
Sure. Well, I mean, when you look back all the way to the history of YK, we started off as Ganado Telephone Company in the 1940s. We're family owned, operated. I'm actually fourth generation in the company. So when you go back all the way to the 40s, there was a need in the community. There was that need for voice service. And so as things have progressed 4 generations later, we're still serving a need for the community. It shifted from voice to now broadband, and then you want to talk about other solutions like Bark that are needed by the community. But that's what we've always kind of taken the term, the fiber of your community. And I think that the mission of YK is what it was, finding a need in the community, bringing a solution to take care of that. And I think that will always be the mission of YK, just tapping into that community, figuring out what they need and how we can turn around and provide that to them.
I love that perspective, and that listening to the community of what it is that's that is particularly challenging. And just tell us where you are physically, because I feel like that creates some potentially unique challenges that you all have to deal with.
Right. So we are on the Texas Gulf Coast. We are southwest of Houston, about an hour. We're in 4 small rural communities, and so we've got a couple of challenges there, and everything from hurricanes that come in through,
more of that lately, unfortunately.
Bark kind of came up on our radar early because we are one of the final gateways in human trafficking before they hit the U.S.-Mexican border. So it's something that we deal with on a day-to-day basis in our service area.
I remember you telling me, we were together, in Austin last year at the NTCA Sales and Marketing Show, and you were telling me that you were having specific training for your technicians because in many ways they're in people's homes, right? And they see these issues, and to be able to recognize, hey, this is a problem. I may need to, reach out to the authorities, let them know that something is not right here.
Right.
I mean, I feel like we're going to have some potentially uncomfortable conversations throughout this little podcast episode that we're doing, but man, that's a difficult one to have. Right?
It is. And I mean, we brought somebody in to talk about domestic violence, human trafficking. We're bringing in now to training for our technicians to be able to administer Narcan for opioid overdose. And so those are the kind of things that our technicians, even some of our sales team, they get to go behind closed doors that a lot of people don't get to see. And I feel like it puts us in a position to where we can use that access as a way to take care of our community.
Yeah, well, that's that beautiful tie back to what you started at the beginning, right? Which is that tie into, hey, how are we actually supporting the communities that you serve?
Yep.
Yeah, I love that. One of the other things that I see you post on LinkedIn a lot, and I know just from talking to you in the past, you have this, I think, really unique perspective of supporting your employees as well as supporting the subscribers and prospects that exist in your communities. Could you talk to us a little bit about the things that you're doing from a wellness perspective to support your employees, and then how that feeds out into the products and services that you're offering your customers too?
Absolutely. So we started a wellness program probably 5 or 6 years ago, and we touch on everything from physical wellness to mental wellness, financial wellness, and we want to make sure that our employees show up, are whole, and we're a family-owned company, so that extension, our team members are a part of the family. So obviously we want to take care of everyone. But, you talk about having those difficult conversations. I don't know how many GM CEOs get up in front of their entire team and talk about mental health, talk about suicide prevention, talk about, bring in a licensed therapist to talk about anxiety, work stress, things like that. We've done everything from the financial component to just household budgeting, how to set up an estate for taking care of those that are here when you're not any longer. All of those things that are going on in your team members' personal lives that inevitably get brought to the workplace. And it's not, I mean, you can look at all the statistics about it, more productivity and more efficiencies there, but it really is. We want to take care of our team members. They're an extension of us. They're part of the family. So yeah, we have those difficult conversations, but they're conversations that need to be had to make sure that everybody's in a good spot.
Yeah. I love my nerdy financial self loves that you do the financial one. Fernando, you and I have talked about this a little bit in the past, just around nerdy stock tips and things like that. But, that's one that really, like, people have wellness stuff, where, like I said, definitely physical health, starting to have more conversations around mental health. Although I would totally agree with you that there are not a lot of executives that are going to get in front of their staff and have that conversation. But the financial one's really interesting one. And I love that you have that conversation, because it's something that it's really sad that we don't learn about that stuff in school, but we really don't. And, setting up an estate, or, just how to invest for your future, those sorts of things. Unless you have a parent that teaches you about that, you're probably not going to be in a good spot about it.
Right.
So talk to us about kind of how that wellness piece, feeds into the types of solutions that you're offering into your community.
Well, I like going right into the whole Bark solution.
Yeah, that's a great transition.
It's one of those things, like I said, you want to take care of your team members, which inevitably they want to take care of the company. And we talk about on a daily basis that it's not about the business model. We've been providing a service to this community for decades. And so there is that, we were talking about today in one of the breakout sessions where we limit the number of installs for our technicians on a daily basis. And there are probably other companies that would, fall on the floor at how much time we spend at the customer prem. But we talk about carving out time for our technicians to make sure they get a full hour for their lunch break. We make sure that we don't do installs or repairs on Thursday so that they have time for department meetings, trainings, things like that, so that we're not just running these guys into the ground. But we feel like when we've got that type of atmosphere where we take care of each other, that is just an extension of how we take care of our customers. And so it really is it's kind of a heartwarming experience to sit back and see your team members go that extra mile because they actually care. Yeah. It's not about meeting a quota. It's not about closing the deal. I am here to provide a solution. I'm here to take care of what it is that you need. And so it really is it just comes full circle.
Yeah, love that. It's, you're playing the long game, man. And that's what's nice about, I think, the position that you're in, is that you can play that out. You ever read this book, Alchemy?
I've not.
Okay. It's a really interesting book. I would recommend it. But Jordan from Jade recommended to me, so it's got to be good, right? Yep. But there was a bunch of discussion. The whole discussion about in the book is that sometimes the irrational thing actually makes the most rational sense. And your perspective on, hey, if my technicians spend a little bit of extra time, or maybe even a lot of extra time with the customer, that's ultimately a really good thing long term. And if you measure it by just a very specific financial metric, that's a bad business decision. Right. But if you're looking at the long term, it's a much better decision. One of the stories in the book was this company in the UK who paid their support reps way more than they should have. Like, okay. They basically overpaid these people. But because they overpaid those people, they got really good employees. Their employees stuck around for a really long time. They would provide an excellent level of service to people when they were calling in with issues. And that situation created such an elevated scenario for the business overall, right? And when they looked at it, it really came back down to that one thing. Like, they didn't offer, prices were similar to their competitors, all that stuff. But because they paid their support reps more than they should have, right, it really resulted in a great outcome for the business. And I kind of love that as much as I'm a data and analytics guy, like, I love that perspective of sometimes the data doesn't tell you exactly what you need to do.
Right. Well, and I think that looking back at our recent NPS survey, and, we were blown away that we walked away. Our first NPS score was a 92.
Absurd.
It's absurd. But what was, when we really dove into the data, one of the statistics that blew my mind even more was that the customers that had a truck roll from a technician was actually up to like 97 because they actually had someone come on site, take care of everything they needed.
Yep.
And it kind of speaks to that whole idea of the customer wants that attention. They want to feel like they're being taken care of. They want to feel like they're heard.
Yes.
The fact that I pick up the phone, I get a live person, I say, this is what's going on. And Robert, Alex, someone shows up and takes care of it that day. It's driving that customer satisfaction.
One of the things Zach and I have done a bit is look at reviews, look at Google reviews,
right?
And do use some natural language processing and AI to actually go through those Google reviews. Zach, one of the things I remember as we've done this has really jumped out is you hear the INR text names called out a lot.
Absolutely.
In those reviews.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've had great success with that. The guys are asking for those reviews. We've got some customers that post selfies with our technicians, and awesome. we had a local auto parts store that had a annual kind of a promotional tent sale that they had going on. Internet went out. They kind of panicked because it was one of their busiest times of the year. Alex shows up. The owners are so thrilled. They take a selfie with Alex. They post it on a 5-star Google review. It's just awesome. You can't recreate those kind of things.
No, that's for sure.
And as we're on the subject of the technicians and some KPIs, one of the things that was brought up earlier was YK's app attach rate. And I think you're as close to 100% as we possibly can be. So I'd love to hear a little bit about, how are your technicians driving that? How are the internal employees of YK Communications driving that much of an app attach rate?
Yeah, so we're somewhere between 98 and 99% for residential GigAspire to Command IQ.
That's obscene. I love it.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is our team is looking. It's like we have 17 more. We can do this by the end of the week.
Pick up the phone and make some calls.
They are. But, it's the whole team that's doing it. When the customer relations team calls ahead to give the customer a heads up that, a reminder your install is tomorrow. Hey, don't forget, make sure you downloaded Command IQ. We're going to walk you through it. There's an email that goes out. The phone call is a reminder so that the app is on the customer's device when we show up. And then the technicians are taking the time to go through the app. One of the things that we do, we ask every technician to show the customer their 3 favorite features of Command IQ. I don't care what 3 they are, but obviously if they get to pick which ones they want to talk about, they're going to be more passionate about it.
100%.
And so they're taking that time to explain it, show it, demo it to the customer. It's just one of those things that we don't walk away until Command IQ is set up.
I love the idea of asking the technicians to talk about their favorite features. There's 4 of us in this room right now. I would guarantee we all have different favorite features of this app.
Absolutely.
I think that is a fantastic way to approach that.
Yeah.
Well, and bring up a great point of if they get to choose, they're going to be much more passionate about the conversation. If they have kids and they're using it to block content and keep, appropriate guardrails around that, obviously they're going to have they're probably going to have a bunch of great stories around that too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of, having situations with their own kids, which actually I didn't even plan this, but beautiful transition back to Bark. So I want to talk a little bit about Bark. I know you guys are rolling this out. Fernando, I definitely want to bring you into the conversation as well around, how you've been having these conversations with the folks, with the employees at YK. Maybe you could run us just a little bit through what those conversations have been like. I know you've been working, partnering really closely with Jeff from our success team as well. So maybe just start there on, what those conversations have been like and how you've been looking to launch this into market.
Yeah, it's actually been a privilege to work with Russell because they're so genuine in what they do. And Bark fits in with that mission. So it's been actually a very natural conversation to work with them. They're such a central part of their community that it just made sense. And it's rare to see a leader really champion that as well. So hats off to you, Russell, because it made it much more easier to integrate this and roll it out.
Yeah.
I love the work you do with schools and partnering with them. It's just an extension of what you normally do. I think you said this, something similar like this. You're providing access to the internet. Why not also provide the tools to stay safe when you're online?
The analogy that I've used, and I know you've heard me say this before, Fernando, but my thought is, hey, if I'm running a city pool, I'm not going to let folks come jump into that pool without a lifeguard on duty.
Exactly.
So it's kind of the same thing. If I'm putting that internet access out there, Bark is the lifeguard of our internet pool.
Yeah, I love that. That's such a great analogy.
Yep.
And I know these are uncomfortable conversations sometimes, right? To have. You were talking about the human trafficking one earlier. That's not a fun one to have. Bark, same thing. We're talking about suicidal ideation and cyberbullying, and some of these, even mass shootings and some of the stuff that is really not fun to talk about. Fernando, have you seen pushback from employees that they're like, oh man, how do I bring this up? Or I love that analogy, Russell. Has that been sort of the way to alleviate some of those uncomfortable conversations that you might be having?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. What we try to share with folks is to empathize with the parent, right? Some parents may be concerned with how much time their kids are spending on the screen.
Yeah.
I saw a stat that the kids spend 7.5 hours a day on their screen. That's 114 days over the course of a year. So for some parents, that's something that's top of mind for them. For others, it might be something that recently happened on social media. Maybe the kids got bullied. So Bark can help with that as well. So as we communicate with families, I suggest to really identify what is it that they're looking for in a solution, because Bark can do so much. And then start with that. There's this thing that I like to call the aha moment, where someone gets Bark and they get their first notification. And after that, they get it. They see the value of Bark and they just continue to use it. I think you had an aha moment that you shared on social media as well.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think when Calix introduced the partnership with Bark, it was, I think it's a year or two ago, my kids were probably 9 and 11. And so it was a real concern for me. It's like
they were
spending
getting into
more
that
time
age.
on these devices. We hadn't gotten to phones yet, but it's like, I know that there are solutions out there, but I don't really know which one is the right fit. And so when we get up in front of the schools and we talk to folks about it, I think that there's a certain element of, hey, I am a dad of young tweens. I am living this. It's a real concern for me as well.
Yeah, there's an authenticity that comes with that.
Right. But, I laugh that I could probably do an entire stand-up comedy piece on some of the alerts that come out of Bark with my kids. There's some really good ones I could share there. But, and I talk about those when we give these presentations and everybody gets a good chuckle out of it. But then we turn around and we talk about some of the very real things that come out of Bark. And, just for example, there was one I posted on social media that my daughter was in a text group with some friends, and one of the girls had met a boy at camp. And one of the girls immediately chimed back and asked age ? Location ? And Bark immediately flagged it as a sexual predator, asking for age and location of one of the girls. And so it was one of those things that hit me, and I'm like, this is a powerful tool that really does work. And one of the things that, as we try to position Bark for our communities and let folks know what it is, how it works, there's things that we work on these campaigns together and might not get a single bite on it, but I took that screenshot, I blurred the names out of it and did a personal post, and everyone in the small community knows my connection with YK.
Sure. Yeah.
And so, but this was a completely innocent conversation between young girls, but it could have gone bad really quick and Bark was there in front of it. And we actually had several folks sign up and subscribe just off of that personal post, because it's a real, genuine concern story. It's not behind a marketing campaign. It's just hey, as a parent, I'm helping you out as a parent. This is a tool that you want for your kids.
For sure. Well, it's to me, it's also selling the outcome, right? It's something that Zach and I talk about all the time. People want to. There's a lot of self-perception and how and the products and services that we all purchase, right? I want to be perceived as a good parent,
right?
So I'm buying these tools and whatnot to protect my kids. Yeah. Obviously, I am concerned about my kids, but I also want people to perceive that I'm a good parent and right. providing these things to my children too, right? So there's a lot of I think selling the outcome that becomes really important. But one of the other things you said there that I loved was using humor to kind of get into that uncomfortable conversation, right? It's like, okay, you've lowered the barrier and by using that humorous stuff to kind of start the conversation. And it's
Right.
like, well, hey guys, imagine this if this actually was a real, predator asking age and location. Like, it's funny because it was my daughter's friends texting with each other,
Right.
but now we're, bringing it back to, hey, this is potentially a really scary actual life situation. So
Absolutely.
I think it's really smart to kind of use that humor to use that as a way to enter the conversation
Right.
in those in more of those uncomfortable conversations
Right.
that are more difficult to deal with.
Right.
Yeah, love that. Well, Russell, I really appreciate the time, man. This was awesome. I really appreciate you sharing your perspective. Again, I love what you guys do from an employee perspective, and I think that feeds so nicely into all of the things that you're doing with your subscribers and prospects in your community as well. Fernando, again, really appreciate you sharing also in the experience that you've had with Russell. As I said, man, we've known each other for a while, but it's fun to actually get to sit down and do this and see how far things have come since we initially started having these conversations. So it's awesome.
Thanks, Gabe.
Thank you.